Hello everybody, welcome back to another. It's brand new, and it's an episode of the BrainFood Show, which has, what sections do we have today? The appetizer, the main course, and the dessert. Mwah! Because the show's called Brain Food. Look at all those food references. But then it's got nothing to do with food, because we're talking about medieval stuff. I mean, maybe we're talking about medieval food. I don't even know. Are we?
I mean, no. Well, we're...
Okay, no, not at all.
No, not at all.
Fair enough. Just makes it extra confusing. I love it. If you want to leave us a review, that would be awesome. You can do that on iTunes or Spotify. Can you leave reviews on Spotify? I don't think you actually can. So
no,
I should
don't
probably...
think so. But like anywhere.
Which is weird.
Yeah, it is weird. That is.
I'd like to switch my podcast listening to Spotify. But I found it a bit annoying because if I want to... There was something like you can't listen to... Do you have Spotify?
No.
Okay, well, if you play at one place, you can't play at another place. So I think it was like, I just want music going on in the background of my house, but then sometimes I want to listen to a podcast as well on my phone or something.
Oh.
And then, like, if I just have music playing in the living room, and then it's like I go to take a shower or something, and I just put my phone there and play a podcast, it'll stop the music in the living room. I'm like, well, that's dumb. Yeah,
that's YouTube does that, because if you do YouTube, whatever it's called now, Premium, I guess, Red or whatever. If you do that, you get the YouTube music free. So I just use that because that's it's like
I've
the
not
same
used
price.
That yet.
It's the same price, but you get no ads on YouTube, which is kind of the same price as Spotify, but you get the no ads. But they do the same thing. You're only allowed to play on one.
No, I mean, I definitely pay for YouTube Premium because
and you don't get the
they
music?
got me because no, I do get the music. I just have Spotify and it's got all my playlists in there. And
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, it's like $7 or somthing.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not a lot.
I don't want to say I'm a baller, but it's not breaking the bank.
No, yeah, totally. So contest.
Weird flex, but okay.
So did we mention the full contest or?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I know I'm actually competent. You have to believe me. If we have. I would have totally forgotten. When we get to 1,000 reviews on iTunes, we're going to give away $1,000 Amazon gift card to a random person who
reviews anywhere,
left a review.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So it doesn't have to be Amazon. Amazon. What am I talking about? Get your shit together, Simon. It doesn't have to be iTunes.
Not like technically anywhere. Like if you write it on your toilet paper next to you, that's not going to work. But
yeah, and we also can't. Look, if you're like listening to this on iTunes Gambia or something, we're probably not going to be checking the Gambia reviews, but like big countries, US, UK, Canada, Australia, the English-speaking ones. I guess like Germany is another big one.
And like any of the podcasting apps.
Listens to the show.
So yeah.
Obviously, like people get the message, dude. Right? We can stop talking about this and get something if you want to hear. Yeah.
All right. So appetizer. Have you ever wondered how the slipping on a banana peel gag got started? Because have you ever actually seen someone slip on a banana peel? No.
One time when I was a kid, my parents bought a bunch of bananas. I must have been like 6 or something. I was really young. And me and my sister, we ate all of the bananas and laid them out on the floor, for people to slip on.
Yeah.
And my parents were really upset that we ate all the... It was like 20 bananas. It was a lot. And they were like, wait, you ate them all?
So did anyone actually slip on them?
No, it was incredibly obvious because it's a giant banana peel that's just laid out on the floor. You'd have to be dumb to be able to miss it.
Yeah, totally. But it turns out this was actually a problem for a little bit, which we're going to get into shortly. But so starting 1866, a man called Carl B. Frank began importing bananas to New York City from Panama. And this was not the first time bananas had been imported to the U.S., but it was the first time someone tried to do it in mass and like consistently and not just like a random thing. And it totally worked and it caught on. So the Centennial International Exposition of 1876, which was the first World's Fair in the U.S., the bananas sold this. I thought this was interesting for 10 cents each, which is $2.40 today. So bananas,
God damn, some fancy banana.
Bananas today cost like 10 cents each. Like that's a rare case where inflation sort of
Dude, how cheap are vegetables and fruit?
Yeah, and bananas are if you want to eat really cheaply, like brown rice, bananas, potatoes, and like chicken. Chicken's the one sort of expensive.
Chicken is,
but it's
a different league.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like brown rice, bananas, and potatoes, like that staple you can eat for like basically nothing, and you just need like a little bit, a little protein somewhere. to get it, which, like chicken or something like that.
It's mad. You buy a giant bag of potatoes, and
Yeah.
it's just nothing.
It's not, and it's like a lot of food there, and you can make a lot of different things. It's great. But
Dude,
so
potatoes are the best.
10 cents when in the World's Fair there, and it's kind of like 10 cents now. So this quickly became...
Yeah, but 10 cents back in the day was $2.40, like you say.
Yeah. So it became a really common street food for obvious reasons. It's something you just buy, and then people would just toss their
I'm
peels.
so disappointed by this today.
Yeah.
Like street food. I want like a hot dog.
Mhm.
I want like an ice cream. I want something either fried or filled with sugar. And be like, what's the street food option? Banana. Oh, the past was the worst.
It totally was the worst. But people would throw their banana peels on the streets, and they would just stay there and get really, like bananas, they get really slimy and all that. And so it actually became like a thing. People were slipping on banana peels. And so, like, for instance, we have 1879 Harper's Weekly criticizing people tossing their banana peels on the ground, saying,
whoever throws banana skins on the sidewalk does a great unkindness to the public and is quite likely to be responsible for a broken limb.
Yeah. So, and
Okay, so
1909,
really
the
was an
St. Louis
issue.
City Council actually outlawed throwing or casting a banana peel out in public for this same reason. And so, it actually was a little bit of a problem. And it eventually inspired one Sliding Billy Watson, who his sort of thing was to slide when he would enter. He would slide across the stage a little bit like Wheezy Waiter or something, where he rolls. Or I think like the Vlog
Slides
Brothers.
him
A lot
on
of
a
people
chair,
do this.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like a YouTube trope of coming on a frame on your chair or whatever. But so he would, slide onto stage. He was a vaudeville performer. And so he eventually took to using the slipping on a banana peel as sort of a gag that he would do. And he seems to be the first to have done this like in that sort of comedic, accidentally slipping on a banana peel. And then it got caught on, Charlie Chaplin did it in the By the Sea, which then after that one, it became like a staple of silent film and sort of caught on from there and just sort of become a staple thing since.
Hilarious.
Yeah, right. Totally. Yeah.
So, I mean, sometimes I hear, like, you see jokes from the past or whatever, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's pretty good. Most of the time, I'm like,
No,
really?
it's totally like really. The classic example we always bring up is that walking, when walking was one of the most popular spectator sports in the world, and it wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't even like walking places. It was like literally just walking in circles, and people would just gather and watch you walk for like hours and hours on end, and not even racing.
But they weren't even racing.
They were just walking, like just to see how long they could walk was like a thing. Without.
By
stopping.
the way, can you do your PSA about bananas? Because it changed by how I do things in my house.
Oh, okay.
You
Yeah.
know, about...
When
it's
they
so
when
useful.
they
It just-
when they
yeah.
reach the optimal ripeness, I think we mentioned it before, but for people who haven't heard, when you reach the optimal ripeness, put it in the fridge, and while the peel will turn really brown and all that, the inside actually will kind of stay locked in that for I don't know, like a week or something. That optimal
Yeah, it's
ripeness.
lasted a long time.
Yeah, and just like
And now I've always got weird looking bananas in my fridge, but
Yeah.
it's the right way to do it.
yeah, totally. So yeah, that is the appetizer for the day, and now we're moving on to
Great.
the bill. Where everyone has to pay to
throw
listen
it.
to an advertisement. That's the
Damn right.
yeah.
We'll throw it to a sponsoree. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do-do. So that was thank you to today's sponsor for letting us do this fine show, and thank you for not skipping it. Or if you just skipped to this point, well,
Yeah.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like a person who's like dying and dashing, like you just, but
Yeah.
so,
Except not a crime. Except
No.
not a crime.
no, not a crime, I suppose.
It just hurts my feelings.
Yeah. Do they
It
want you to?
doesn't.
Do
It
they want you to
doesn't.
still be
It's-
able to afford your Spotify and your YouTube Premium? Like,
Dude, exactly. How do I keep up this lifestyle? You know,
yeah. No, but it is true that actually the podcast
and all my
actually does.
potatoes.
The podcast does actually need to be really like genuinely profitable at some point for us to continue indefinitely. So it's always helpful to support the sponsors. So today, what are we talking about today? For the main course, we're going to talk about court jesters and what it was like to be. What was it actually like, life of a court jester? And then for the dessert, we are moving on to what it was like to be an executioner in medieval times. Like what was the reality of it versus sort of the Hollywood or popular perception. So starting with court jesters, you might think wearing like a stupid costume, being mocked, and acting like an idiot for a bunch of spoiled brats, rulers, would be not a job you would want, and also sort of temperamental and sort of unstable rulers who might just have your head lopped off if you offend them. Would not be awesome. I just thought it was funny. There's a position of the groom of the stool, which is like a real thing. And that was where there was a person whose job it was to make sure the rulers poop was looking good. Like if it wasn't looking good, they would examine it and make sure if it's not looking good, they might change their diet. They might, make recommendations there, and just, they're all things poop related, make sure you clean nicely. And they're just
okay.
The groom
I
of
might
the
have
stool.
imagined this. So I had a dream about this,
Yeah.
but I swear I had a podcast advertisement from some podcast or something about a company that you ship your poo off to, and they will analyze your poo for you. Sort of like Ancestry DNA, except for your poo.
Well, this is interesting because people...
Wait, have you heard of this?
No, I have not. But it's interesting because people talk about, like, so why would aliens do, like, anal probes? Like, that's a thing, like the trope with aliens, like, abducting people and doing anal probes. But that is the perfect thing to do because you're extracting the poop, and so you can examine what have they been eating, what's their diet, and you can tell a lot about their health from this. You can there's, you got the, like, all the dead cells in there you can examine. Like, this is actually a thing, like, alien abductions would actually be a good idea to do.
Dude,
yeah.
No. Yeah. If you're some magical alien species that has come God knows how many light years from, like, Alpha Centauri or whatever, and you're coming to our Earth and you're going to examine us, I don't think they need to, like, go up your butt.
No.
They're going to have
not
the technology.
Necessarily. But what if they don't want to stick around? It's a big universe they're exploring. What if they just want to stop by for like a couple days?
And the quickest way is to go up someone's butt.
Yeah. Well, they can
That's
tell
the
a lot about...
solution.
When you look at animals, if you're studying animals, you study their poop to see all sorts of things about them.
Okay, so just go get it direct from the sewage.
Yeah.
Then you'll get a much more broader spectrum as well. You'll find out we're all on drugs.
It's nearly as fun in, like, horror movies and stuff. Like, it's much more terrifying.
Yeah, dude. Okay. Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
There are no aliens abducting us and going up our butts.
Yeah, you wouldn't think so. But
we did a whole video about Project Blue Book, right? That was
That was a great one.
Yeah.
That was actually
that
was fascinating. We should make that into a podcast episode something, because I actually thought that was super fascinating. It was the study of where the government, the U.S. government, hired someone to actually look into it and gave him, like, full access to all records, basically.
Proper academic.
Yeah, like top secret records.
Everything.
He had everything, and his job was to find, because the military was concerned that there might actually be aliens, and they wanted to be, make sure. So he looked into everything, and yeah, that was a good one.
Spoiler alert, his conclusion was there are no aliens.
No, yeah.
I mean, there are definitely aliens, but they're just not on Earth looking up our butts.
Yeah, no, yeah. Like the odds of there not being aliens is just like it's forget about it. There's, like, trillions of planets out there. It's not just Earth, like.
The fact that it seems likely there was once life on Mars,
and
it seems possible there's also life in Venus's atmosphere.
Yeah.
These are 2 planets in our solar system.
Well, and even if there wasn't, just the sheer odds of there not being anywhere, it just doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. So, the universe is, like, teeming with life. It's just, they're probably not, anal probing us.
I know this is off topic, but I'm just so hoping, I really hope that within my lifetime, whether it's ancient life on Mars or whether it's something going on Venus, I really hope they get some samples, because I desperately want to know if they have, like, DNA like us. Whether, like, the universe is built on the same elements, right? I want to know, is alien life, does it operate like DNA? Is that how it works? Or is there some completely other system for how life develops? Is there another way for life to develop?
Like, people always talk, like, Star Trek. Oh, I mean, obviously they all have to be like human, like, for the actors, but, like, it actually makes sense that they would have these bipedal or like quad, like, the people, because you need to move around. So most life is going to have, like, legs or like dogs.
For sure, and these things have evolved independently. Like eyes have evolved in different species entirely independently of each other.
So there's actually a great likelihood that they would be, like, you'd have these things that look fairly similar. Like, and sure, like, you have lots of different types. Like, the environment might be different. So you have, like, fish and stuff. But, like, at the end of the day, there's going to be these similarities to life, some form of life that's on Earth, probably. In most cases.
I mean, you look at a dolphin. It's crazy different, but it's also crazy similar.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
I hope aliens look like dolphins.
So we should jump into what are we actually talking about? The groom of the stool. That's how we got on this. So what about being the court jester? And it came with a slew of perks. So what was life actually like as a court jester. Just for a brief little history first, turns out humans have had court jesters or some job of a jester pretty much seemingly as long as humans have been humaning. There's just record, like basically as long as history goes back, there was always people whose job it was just to entertain people, and the wealthy tended to like to employ them for their own entertainment. So like you have like,
today's YouTubers.
Yeah, it was just they wanted to be entertained, and the rich could hire their own private ones, and then other people just got the the mass entertainment. So so you have like Egyptian pharaohs, first emperor of China. All these, there seemed to always have been some form of that, but the position matured over time. So we get to the actual medieval time stereotype. So we did have these jesters who they tended to be called fools or buffoons, rather. The jester name didn't come about until from the 16th century, from the Anglo-Norman gestur, meaning storyteller, was where that name came from. But so there was two popular types. One was the licensed fool, and then the natural fool. And you can see sort of the one was just like naturally, just by their very, I don't know how they were born or whatever, how the brain works. They're a little off or whatever, and so they were just the natural.
Okay.
And then the licensed one was more like the pros who trained like their whole life to be awesome at many things, which we'll get to in a bit. So, but the ones that had physical deformities were prized. Like if you had like an extreme hunchback or malformed limbs or dwarfs, which we talked about. We had a whole episode on Lord Minimus. So if people want to go,
yeah, I like that episode.
Yeah, that was good. I think we titled it the Renaissance Dueling Dwarf or something like that. Lord Minimus.
Sounds similar, yeah. I mean, if you search Lord Minimus, there's probably not 100 videos on YouTube about Lord Minimus.
Yeah, or I mean, the podcast. I think we have like 60 or 70 episodes, so people might have to.
Yeah, but if you search Lord Minimus, I mean, it's not going to bring up every episode of the podcast. It's going to bring up the one about Lord Minimus.
Yeah. So the license.
I mean, unless something really went wrong with your YouTube search.
Yeah.
I searched Lord Minimus, and all I got were videos about flat Earth.
Well,
it's weird.
Depending on the website, Lord Minimus might come up with something quite different. So licensed fools. So what did they wear? And actually, the sort of the stereotypical view is actually not that far off. So you have like they might wear like a monk's cowl or like a patchwork thing, and they also have that colorful fool's hat, that stereotypical thing, which actually. If people are wondering why that hat, and it's supposed to model donkey ears, and sometimes they would also wear a donkey tail as well, just sort of like complete the look. So they just sort of dressed oddly for amusement, basically. So
I mean, the medieval times, like in my mind, generally quite bad.
Yeah.
I think this would be a laugh. Like it would be quite good to be the fool.
Well, and
you get to
these people were
and you get
skilled.
to get away with all sorts of shit, right?
To a certain extent, you had to be tactful. To some extent, especially because you got to deal. You remember you're dealing with spoiled
That's
brats.
where I'd probably get my head chopped off. Yeah.
I'd
say something and I'd think it's funny, and then they'd take it too personally, and then I'd just be executed.
No, that was the thing.
No.
Yeah, so they did their job description. Like the licensed fools were really skilled. Like so, they had to be really quick-witted. Obviously, that's but they had to be good at performing drama, reciting poetry and stories, and memorize these things. So they had to be able to do it on command, like and sing songs, perform acrobats, all this stuff. And key here is they also had to change their routine over time to continue to entertain. You can't just do the same thing all the time. So, so all this, they were also in charge of cheering up. The king or, whoever they were working for, the duke, whatever. And they also sometimes had household tasks, like running messages was a common one they would do. And unfortunately, they also were typically the ones to deliver bad news to the ruler. They would be the ones just because they, try to make them laugh or, this sort of thing. We have an example later that's actually pretty funny of one. We'll get into a specific jester, but they were ideal for running messages also because they tended to be around the ruler, like, all the time and around all meetings and stuff. So they were already intimately aware of everything. So they could be sort of trusted with, they already knew the stuff in the messages. So they were good for that. On battlefields, they also carried messages and were, functioned as entertainers for the troops to sort of boost morale and everything like that. Licensed fools, they had to be, super talented. They were very smart, quick-witted, all that, very talented, and had to continue training for a lot. Natural fools, on the other hand, didn't necessarily have to have that, although their job description in general was about the same, but they were just sort of naturally good at it by their very nature. Maybe they have some sort of, mental thing going on. And and all of these also should mention, they were prized for their speaking the truth, but again, they had to be careful sometimes, like the unbridled truth, so the ruler could sort of trust that what they said was, like they basically job was to tell the ruler when they're being stupid, but you can't, you had to be tactful about it if you didn't want to get in trouble. So we have a natural fool. Let's get into specific examples.
Get in trouble. Get your head chopped off.
Yeah. Exactly. So a natural fool, we have William Somers. He was a King Henry VIII's. He replaced the previous natural fool Sexton, who was gifted to the king by Cardinal Thomas Wolsey. So just like gifting these people, which we kind of got into with Lord Minimus, that sort of thing. But Somers was a natural fool, but it's not really clear what his mental deficiency was, because he was noted as having all these like very quick-witted, very good at satire.
So the natural fools are the ones who look weird. The licensed fools are the ones who are like more like a comedian.
Well, the natural fools were actually both of them. If you looked weird, you were prized for that. The natural fool was the one where it was more like a mental thing. Like it was they had like some sort of mental issue that just made them naturally amusing to people. More like laughing at you type thing instead of with you. Yeah, exactly. But in his case, he was known for quick-witted, good satire, a very close counselor to the king, who the king really respected his opinion. But for some reason, he also couldn't seem to take care of himself at all. He had to have someone actually take care of his day-to-day stuff. So some people suggest maybe he was autistic, like pretty far on the spectrum. So maybe had some of this, but struggled with some day-to-day things or something. But nobody knows why he was considered a natural fool. But so we have some of his many antics. We have a couple examples. So the 17th century account by comedic actor Robert Armin. So he was at one point the king's juggler, Thomas, apparently. Somers sauntered in with milk while the juggler was jugging, and he had a bread roll as well. And then Somers sang this song.
I'm not going to sing it, but This bit, Harry, I give to thee, and this next bit must serve for me, both which I'll eat apace. This bit, madam, unto you, and this bit I myself eat now, and the rest upon thy face.
At which point he chucked the milk in Thomas's face.
Yeah, okay.
And ruined his performance, and everyone thought this was quite amusing. So Somers also, he was so prized or favored by the king that he actually appeared in a family portrait of 1545 of portrait Henry VIII and his family. And so that included the king, his one of his wives, Jane Seymour, his daughters, Mary and Elizabeth, his son Edward, and Mary's own Jester, who is Jane the Fool. This is an interesting thing. Women jesters had basically the same status, same job description, same abilities. They could mock the rulers. Basically, there was no difference between the men jesters and the women. It was completely which was a rare profession back then, where it was the same, the same skills, same everything, same rights or whatever between the two. So Jane the Fool was also considered, thought to have been a natural fool, just like Somers. And so, but they both appeared in the family, the photo. So
that's got to be quite an honor, back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but illustrating sort of the danger of being a jester, even a natural fool, which so Somers is highly beloved by the family as he was. A few different occasions, King Henry VIII became so mad he threatened to have him executed. So one of them was in 1535 when Somers joked that one of Henry's children was a bastard. So maybe too close to home. Yeah. On that, and so
Henry VIII, right? Yeah.
So then we're going to move on to this example of Triboulet, who is a really famous jester. He served under King Louis the 12th and Francis I. And so the French poet Jean Marot describes Triboulet as
a fool with an unsightly head, as wise at 30 as on the day he was born, with a small forehead and large eyes, a big nose and squat figure, a flat, long belly and a humpback. He mocked, sang, danced, and preached in derision of everyone.
And this guy was so famous. There's several characters in literature that have been based on him. So probably most famously Victor Hugo's Leroy, I don't know, c'est amuse, eh?
S'amuse, maybe.
Yeah, something. But his brand of satire got him frequently beaten in court. So just like if he would offend someone, they would hire someone to go beat him. And then at one, there's a sort of a legend. It's not really clear if this actually happened or just an anecdote. But supposedly he came to King Francis and told him that one of the members of the court had threatened to kill him, Triboulet, not the king. He's like, hey, these people are going to kill me. And so the king reportedly replied,
If he does, I will hang a quarter. If he does, I will hang him a quarter of an hour afterward.
To which Triboulet supposedly quipped,
Ah, sir, couldn't you contrive to hang him a quarter an hour previously? It's pretty good though.
Yeah, but he actually did, the king orders his execution at one point because Triboulet made fun of the queen. It's not really clear whether this is just an anecdote that has come over time or just something. I mean, it seems like in line with what, his quick wit and stuff. Because of his good service, the king...
I'm glad we make all our stupid jokes on the internet.
Yeah.
Because people aren't going to beat us up. Yeah. Like, judging by some people on Twitter, I'd be like, wow, I'd definitely be getting beaten up if this was just a room where we all got to talk to each other.
Oh, yeah, or YouTube comments, too. Like this.
Don't even go to YouTube comments. It's not even worth it.
Yeah.
Jeez.
The first day is really good, usually. It's really, over time, like, it just degrades into... not worth ever looking at. But so in any event, so the king orders his execution for insulting the queen, but he says, because of your good service, you can choose your manner of death, and that part seems to have happened. It's with the response.
Thanks.
His response is the part that's not clear if it's a legend or not. But so Triboulet purportedly told the king,
"Good sire, for Saint Natouche's and Sig Pansard's sake, patrons of insanity, I choose to die from old age." Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's good. So apparently this amused the king so much that instead of killing him, he just had him banished.
Hey.
Yeah, it was an upgrade. Where am I?
All that said, a good gesture is expected to... Do you like how I'm doing your job? Because I know where we are in the notes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So a good court jester is expected to help their master see folly in their plans.
Yeah, so that
they're making or actions. That's the job of the jester.
Yeah, and as mentioned, breaking the bad news and all that. So we're going to have an example of that. So 14th century legend has it. King Philip VI of France was given the news that his fleet was destroyed by the English in the Battle of Sluys, maybe, by the jester, who said...
"The coward English, the dastard English, the faint-hearted English."
So then the king responds,
"Why do you abuse them?"
To which the jester supposedly stated,
I feel like we're doing a table read.
Yeah.
Because they would not jump out of their ships into the sea as our brave Frenchmen did.
Yeah, so...
The French.
What did they actually get paid for this? And this actually varied. Some of them didn't have salaries at all. They were just sort of their upkeep. Some of them did have regular stipends along with that. But they were exceptionally well taken care of with food, room servants sometimes, and things like that. But on top of that, if they would particularly amuse all these, wealthy people that they were around, they tended to get little like tips, basically. And sometimes these were big. So like King Henry II awarded 30 acres of land to a jester named Roland Le Pétour, who and the stipulation to this land as part of the deal. So I guess he was retiring or something. And so once a year, this guy had to return to court and to quote,
"Leap, whistle, and fart."
Yeah.
He's motivated to eat some beans.
Yeah. Well, and the days before the internet and good entertainment. Yeah. You had to pay 30 acres of land to get that. But yeah, they could gifts were sometimes even titles and money, like lots of money and stuff like that. So one Tom the Fool was actually awarded 50 shillings, which is about a year's salary at the time, for just an excellent performance to King Edward I's daughter during King Edward I's daughter Elizabeth's wedding. So just sort of his job anyway, but he got a 50 shilling bonus for doing a particularly good job at the wedding. So they were well compensated.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Does this happen in real life? Like, it always happens in movies, right? Or I don't know, you hear about it places. Like casinos, and some, there'll be some, what's the person who deals the cards called? A dealer, right?
Nailed it.
Like a blackjack dealer or whatever.
Yeah.
And in the movies, they'll be like in James Bond or whatever, and to be like 50,000 to you, Mr. Bond, or however it works.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's and then he's like 100,000, and then the game ends, and he just flips a coin to the dealer, and it's like, I don't know, like $250,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
Does that happen in real life? Because then if I was that dealer, I'd be like, I'm done. Yeah. I'm out.
Well, I mean, we had that one story of that rich billionaire from, I think it was Australia, who did that when we were doing the one on the largest bets ever made, right? And
Yeah, but did
he would
tip
do that,
any-
like he would tip like 50,000
Oh.
and stuff like that, and like that, like
Yeah, so what happens after that? Do you get to keep it all? Does some go to the casino? Surely then.
yeah, I'm sure there's different rules, like they divide it all up, or I think that's
But
probably.
you never
pretty
hear
common.
about someone who's like a blackjack dealer living in like a giant mansion.
Yeah,
Or
no,
maybe,
so it's
maybe
probably
they
not,
do.
They probably get good tips, but it's not like it's not so much that you're gonna like retire. It's just like someone gives you like $1,000 tip, like that's great, but it's not gonna like change your life or anything. It's just like that's
No, but
awesome
it would make
for
the
right
job.
now.
Like if that was happening every
Yeah.
night.
No, I wouldn't think it would be like an every night. It'd be like people who do really well, which the casino usually wins, so most people don't. So,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
That's true.
yeah. So
Interesting.
The other
or
way-
like waiters in super expensive restaurants. Like,
Yeah,
you
they make
guys
good
tip
money.
like 20% in America for some
Yeah.
reason. Like if you've had like $20,000 worth of wine or something.
Yeah.
It's like
no, at the fancy
is the
restaurants,
waiter keeping that?
Yeah, they at fancy restaurants they make good money. Those ones.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like that.
But
It probably makes up for like $4 they get paid an hour or whatever.
yeah,
it is, which
in the U.S.
seems
particularly.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the jesters could also get good earnings, or I should say, parlay their roles as the fools to great wealth by using. So they're a confidant of the king or the duke or these wealthy people, and so they can sort of work out deals for their family or their friends to get them lucrative deals and like things like this, and then they get compensated, sort of in the back alley type thing. That way. So Summers actually, he got his uncle who was in financial ruin. He got him a deal with the king that sort of saved him. So that's like a thing. And as noted, moving on to female jesters, they had sort of the same powers and stuff. And so I just like this woman had some good examples. So Mathurin the Fool, she was served in the courts of Henry the Third and Fourth, and also Louis the 13th in the 17th century. So she was well known for her. She used to dress up as like a stereotypical Amazonian warrior, which we did that video where Amazonian
That's not even
warriors.
a thing, is that?
It was like the actual Amazonian. It was like actually seems like it is based on a real thing, but not quite.
The
legend.
cutting the breasts off wasn't a thing.
Yeah, that wasn't a thing, but there was this group.
That's the
There was this group in the steppes, I think it was, where the women did fight, and it was it does seem to have inspired this Greek notion of the Amazonian warrior. This group seems to be the inspiration for it, at least, even though obviously it's became sort of various legendary aspects and stuff. But they did the women trained, fought, and also a lot of the elements of the original Greek stories were very similar to this group. But I mean, they just sort of fought alongside their men rather than being like exclusively just like a women group. But in any event, she would dress as an Amazonian warrior was her thing. So shield, armor. She had a wooden sword that was not sharp or anything. But she did at one point. Let's see if I have the. Oh, I'm gonna wait because there's a whole long quote about it. So she dressed this way, and she was known for her extremely quick wit. One story was she was standing or walking alongside the lady in waiting who complained that she didn't like having a fool at her right side, and then supposedly without missing a beat, Mathurin supposedly jumped to the lady's other side and announced to the court,
I don't mind at all.
yeah. So she also, this is the part I was mentioning with her. So she had this picture, she's in her Amazonian garb, and she foiled the assassination, supposedly, of Henry the Fourth. So the assassin went, and so she encounters this, and he's trying to escape, and this story is recounted in the 19th century edition of Frank Leslie's Popular Monthly, where it states,
Mathurin, who was arrested the youth. Mathurin it was who arrested the youth who attempted to assassinate Henry the Fourth on December the 28th. This youth, who had glided into the apartment unperceived, struck at the king with his dagger. Devil take that fool with her tricks, cried his majesty. Mathurin sprang to the door and, barring the passage, prevented the escape of the king's assailant.
Yeah, in her Amazonian
There you go.
garb. Kind of interesting. But
Yeah, useful, not just for show. That wooden sword.
yeah. So what happened to the position of the court jester? So when did it go away? So it turns out it sort of mostly died off around the 17th century as theater started becoming a thing and popularized. It's sort of like, again, like as funny as the jesters were and stuff, when you have like popular entertainment that's better, everyone just sort of gravitates to that instead. And a lot of these jesters would move to that too because they can make a lot more money and it's a lot less sort of. You didn't have to worry about getting your head chopped off.
Risky.
As much and offending people. So one of the world's Western world, anyways, last famous court jesters was Samuel Maggotty Johnson, who worked for the Duke of Montagu, but he also hired his services out at this time to basically anyone, and he even wrote a play in London, and at the behest of the Duke of Montagu asked him to. And so he writes this, and it was so bad, like it just ultimately panned. So if people have seen The Room, where it's popular because it's like the worst movie of all time, like, and it's so good because it's so awful, and people love it. And this play became that. It was like the 18th century version of The Room, where it's just everyone just hated it, but it was so bad it was awesome. So like as one commentator of it noted.
The extraordinary drama of Hurlo-Thrumbo was the talk and admiration of the town. The more curious and more insane production has seldom issued from human pen until The Room.
Yeah, exactly. So when Maggotty died at the age of 82, he sort of showing his humor. He requested to remove from his body from the churchyard because he didn't want to be buried next to this woman called Hannah Bailey, who he had frequently quarreled, and then because he stated on the day of resurrection, they'd just be fighting over whose leg bone was whose. And then he actually asked to be reburied in the tomb. This is kind of sweet, actually.
Wait, they did it?
Yeah, but he had another reason. He had a serious reason, actually, and it's kind of sweet a little bit. So he asked to be reburied in a tomb, which is now in a place called Maggotty Wood. I don't know if you ever heard of that? Or...
Never heard of it.
Okay. Yeah, so he would...
Wait, it's in England? Oh, yeah, of course it's in England.
I believe so. Yes, it is in England. So it's and you can
Duke and all these people sounds pretty
yeah. So you can go there, and he just wanted he had a servant girl who it was sort of his lady love, and that was her favorite place, so she got buried there. So he wanted to be buried there as well. And so that's the end of the court jester, and now we're going to move on from that. For the dessert of today is the job of the medieval executioner. What was this actually like in the ballpark of the medieval times? Obviously. So what did someone do like as what was the actual day-to-day life, and how did you get the job in the first place?
Maggotty Wood gets a 4.7 on Google reviews.
Really? That's
by the way.
That's
pretty good. I feel like I'd heard of it, but I probably haven't because it's up near Liverpool, which is really far away from where I grew up.
That's fascinating. You say like really far away because I feel like England is the UK is so small, like relative.
Yes. Yeah, and that's true. I mean, let me see.
Because you can drive from like one end to the other in a day, right?
Yeah, it's a long day's drive. Yeah, it's 4.5 hours from, and I'd say that's pretty far away.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's up near Manchester. You could do it in, I wouldn't drive up there and then drive back the same day, for example. That would be crazy. Honestly, if it's a drive that's over an hour, I'm like, better be staying over.
see, I don't know. My dad was a truck driver, so like I'm like, 14-hour, 15-hour day. That's perfectly okay with me.
It's okay.
It's good. It's fine.
No.
But yeah. So where were we? So yeah, the job of executioner, obviously, again, the caveat as ever, varied widely across regions and stuff like that. We had the great story of the Ottoman Empire during the 18th century. I think we brought it up here before, but just really quickly, where you could, if you were...
Is that the one with the gardener?
Yeah, the gardener. If you could just beat him.
Yeah,
there was
I
also
like
the
that.
executioner, and they would hand you the little drink, and if it was the one color, that means you were executed. Whoever decided that you were going to be executed, and once you got it, you could just like sprint, and if you could make it to the walls or whatever before they did, if you could beat them in the foot race, then you could live. And I think like only a handful of people actually managed it.
Yeah, the head gardener was really fast.
Yeah, and strong, because they were also like bodyguards and quite fit and everything. So, and if they got caught, they would
not
just
like you're racing Boothby or something.
Yeah, and if you got caught, they would just strangle you and right there when they caught you. So if you didn't win the race, so. How did you become an executioner in medieval times in Europe in the first place? And a lot of the times it was just former criminals because nobody wanted the job of executioner, and for many, many reasons we're going to get into. It wasn't like a pleasant job to have, just even beyond like if you don't like, if you didn't care about killing someone, it was just an awful job to have for various reasons. So Scandinavian countries, they extensively used former prisoners themselves. And they would also tend to do cut off one of the ears or both of the ears, just so they could easily identify. And then you also usually were branded, so that everyone knew you were an executioner. So we have an example of this in Hugo Matheson's, I don't know. What?
Good luck with that.
Yeah. A book he wrote.
Boddle og Galgafuggle?
Sure, I'll go with that.
Galgafuggle. In the year 1470, a poor thief stood at the foot of the gallows in the Swedish town of Arboga and was waiting to be hanged. The public attending the spectacle had pity on the sinner, and when he, to save his neck, offered to become executioner in the town, it was agreed. He was pardoned, and the red-hot iron was used to brand his body with both the thief and the executioner mark.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, getting branded is not going to be any fun at all.
No, especially, you don't have,
especially back in the day when it's like, I got a small infection and now I'm dead.
Yeah, pretty much. You don't got like painkillers to take the sting out a little bit. I mean, I suppose you could get drunk or something, but
there's no liquid ibuprofen to just rub onto that.
Yeah, no, exactly. So and there were also just standing executioners and stuff with.
They have like. They must have discovered that if you start chewing on some poppies, you're gonna have a good time. Although I guess that's all the way around the other side of the world, right?
Yeah. I don't know when that would have been like a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not. It's not a good time.
No.
Whatever way you want to look at it.
And so another one in Germany, they had a thing where the oldest. So you see, the executioner was often the oldest male relative of the victim. So that was like it just became their thing. So that's not.
That's
ideal.
not brilliant.
Yeah. So everyone avoided this profession like the plague for a variety of reasons. First off, it was generally considered that you were damned in the afterlife if you were an executioner. So just like, you're going to hell.
Oh,
like,
and that meant that, like, back in the day, people were like, oh, shit.
Yeah, exactly. And that was despite the fact that, like, in France, the church officially decreed that, no, you're absolved from the sins from your execution, but people, they still believed it anyway. Like, the general public's like, you're going to hell. Like, that's just what's going to happen to you. Also, executioners were generally considered unclean, so people avoided them like the plague, like quite literally. They were ostracized. They had to, live outside of town. They weren't. In some places, they even had laws against you can't go to a pub, you can't go to these markets, like you can't do any of these things. Like to get around this problem, of course, you still.
It's like COVID.
Yeah, you were basically completely ostracized. To get around that, though, I mean, obviously they still need to get food. So in these places, sometimes they would be given like a tax, so they could tax the local, shops to say, okay, you got to give me some butter. Just send it out to me.
Okay.
So we didn't have to go.
That's not so bad.
Yeah, but you wouldn't, you weren't allowed to basically interact with society. Like you weren't, and some of them you couldn't have dinner. Like there was laws that like the common folk couldn't have dinner with an executioner. Like, and so you were completely, ostracized from society, basically, unless the society that you could interact with were criminals, basically, and people who just didn't care,
Well, they're the most fun anyway.
Yeah. So, yeah, and the only places you could live, if you could live near the town, were often next to like latrines and leprotoriums and brothels, basically, which
Dude, is a leprotorium what I think it is?
I would assume so. Yeah.
Wow.
Like clearly you'd pick the third option, right? Like that's the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
should I live next to the toilet?
Yeah, the place
the
that smells
leper colony or the brothel?
Yeah. So yeah, they were just sort of barred from everything, that was just quite common. And so, as you might imagine from this, they were kind of executioners could interact with other executioners and then their families. Because, that's the other thing. It's not just you that are condemned to all this. Your family is just as ostracized. So if you have kids, they're just as ostracized and they can't interact with other kids. And so it's just not a good profession that you wanted.
Who executes people these days? I guess it's just machines, right?
Well,
someone's got to press the button on that lethal injection.
I feel like it's like doctors and stuff like typically involved, and which it's very. I mean that we have we should probably just do a podcast episode because we've done a few different episodes sort of around that issue of like executions and like the difficulty. So we had like that one on the last meal, which was quite interesting, and on like the last executioners in Britain, that one was really fascinating. There's 3 cases. Do you remember that one? 3 cases that kind of stopped the executions.
Gee, this must have been a while ago.
Yeah, they were like back to back to back cases where like the people were like, everyone was like, no, why are we even killing these people? Like that's like, I think one of them, the guy was like clearly innocent. Another one, the woman was like, clearly everyone was on her side and like, yeah, we would have killed him. Like, and then like, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I remember that.
Yeah. So it was just like back to back to back, and then people were like done with it, executions. But yeah, and then the last executioner in Britain. Yeah, we could probably put all that together to a podcast episode. It could be quite interesting. But yeah, so yeah, it also turns out the executions, because they don't really happen that often in reality, it was hard to make ends meet as it. But you also, so the alternate work that was available to you as an executioner wasn't exactly awesome. So like disposal of corpses, emptying cesspools, collecting taxes from the diseased, and prostitutes, which no one wanted to do, things like this.
Well, at least you live next to the brothel, so it's convenient.
Yeah, that's that one.
And maybe the latrine as well.
Yeah, but from the disease, that's not ideal. So yeah, the interesting one that they did have was doctor and surgeon, was like a thing, which doctors and surgeons back then, that type were shunned quite a bit. But because executioners were experts at torturing people, because that's something they also were sort of tasked with as part of their job, they tended, and they were a close-knit community of executioners and their families. They would sort of over generations, because your kids had no opportunity but to be an executioner too. That sort of became a thing. So they actually were really experts in human anatomy, as you might expect over time from that. And so they
Grim.
Yeah, being like doctors and stuff became a thing. So like we have a very famous executioner, Franz Schmidt, from the 17th century. He was from Germany. He treated, in his journal, he has an extensive journal, so that's also why he's still so famous today, but he treated over 15,000 people as a doctor or surgeon, but only executed 394 and tortured, I think it was about the same number as he executed. So most of the time he was actually functioning as a doctor, despite everyone, he was considered an executioner. So he was one who, his father was thrust into becoming a executioner, and then that just sort of meant that was his only option. So he trained, and this is just weird because you think about this as a kid. He's a kid, and he's shunned by society, and he's trained to torture people, to kill people, like execute them, and that as a kid, and like he would go along with his father and help out with these things. But you'd think that might warp a person, but he was actually known. He's a famous example also because of what happened later. He was such like an outstanding, like, good person, and like people really liked him, like, over time.
Yeah.
So eventually he was able to parlay that to get an audience with someone that's later in the notes, and they basically
Nuremberg authorities.
Yeah. So at the age of 70 years
you're
old,
welcome.
he was able to get, and he had so many references from the people of his town and like this, of like, this guy is such a good guy. He's and they released him. So they basically absolved him, so he was no longer shunned by society, and his family name was cleared and everything. So just because he was just so good and job. Oh, Emperor Ferdinand the.
It only took him treating 15,000 people.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that probably helped too, because he actually was helping people in that sense. But ultra professionalism was actually sort of necessary if you're an executioner at this time, because if you weren't, some of the things, like if you, like in Germany, they had a law that if you took more than 3 swings to behead the victim, you yourself would get executed. So if you didn't, so you had to perform it. And forget about that. Like if the mob, so there's always a crowd when you're executing these people. And if you do a bad job, or like the crowd just gets really unhappy with what's happening, they can kill you, and nobody in the mob will get punished for that. So you sort of had to do a good job and not have a problem with that. And so Schmidt in his journal actually noted this. He only had a mob turn once, and they didn't turn on him. They actually turned on the person he was flogging, and they just killed him. The person stoned the guy to death.
Oh,
yeah. So retaliation from the mob, or retaliation from, like, if you're executing someone and their family is not too happy about it, that was always a risk as well, that they might come after you.
Well, it's not like you decided to execute them.
Yeah, but like,
you don't get angry at the gun.
Yeah, and that was actually a way that they could make money on the side a little bit too, was that sometimes the family of them would bribe you to say, hey, could you make this particularly painless, or how about give him some alcohol, like that, so they could make money that way. So yeah, but it was a risk. Like if there was a large group of people who were upset about the execution, they might, if you didn't do a good job on it, they want to see a quick quick death, very painless. And if you didn't do a good job, the mob, might get upset with you and then just kill you. So that was another danger of being that. But Schmidt was extremely good at it, and so he actually, how did he train? So because the mob doesn't care if it's your first day on the job, so they would actually, obviously he would go along and help his father, but he was also, before the big event where he was actually the executioner and torturer, he would practice on animals, various animals, before allowed to execute a human himself, just to make sure he did a good job.
Okay.
When the time came. So yeah, but they could make, like, an executioner wasn't like a great paying, but if they traveled, some of the executioners traveled to make a better living, to just sort of dole out their services elsewhere, because executioners were really...
People didn't want to do it.
Yeah, nobody wanted to do it, so that was a way to make money and whatnot. So...
It's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
You got to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Traveling executioner.
Another job that was common of the executioners was to arbitrate disputes between prostitutes, and also drive lepers out of town.
Again, super. You got to live next to the brothel. You
Yeah,
collect taxes. You do the arbitration.
Yeah.
You clean out their latrines.
Yeah.
You execute them if they're naughty.
Yeah, that one of the groups you could probably actually talk to, like, especially a male executioner. You're not. I mean, there's like all of women are like sort of barred from you, except for the prostitutes, basically.
Yeah.
They also, and there were some laws, some towns had laws where any stray animal carcass was automatically the property of the executioner of the town. And so that could be quite valuable with the teeth and hide and stuff like that. And they were also in charge of disposing of those animal carcasses. So they would always find them. So let's see. Yeah, we already talked about the tax. They also had the tax where they could get goods and stuff.
For free. Just be like, give it to me.
Yeah. And
or I'll chop off your head.
As for what they made, so we have what did they make per execution? So there's a German town in 1276 that had a statute that said the equivalent of 5 shillings per execution, which was roughly, obviously that's hard to translate, but it was out at the time in the area. It was around 25 days for a normal tradesman, like a normal skilled tradesman. So that was quite like a month's thing. But again,
it's pretty good.
Yeah, again, they weren't like executing someone every month either. So it wasn't like they had to, supplement on the side. So, one thing to finally address, just to wrap this up on what it was like to be a medieval executioner and versus Hollywood. So Hollywood always depicts it as they always wear masks, that black mask, that stereotypical thing, but that doesn't actually appear to have been much of a thing, because as noted, like, a lot of these executioners were branded.
People knew who you were.
Yeah, everyone knew who you were. Like, even big cities,
they made an effort.
Even big cities, like in medieval times, were not big by like the way we think of it. Like, so everyone knew who you were, so they weren't trying to hide it or anything. So the mask wearing doesn't seem to have been like a popular thing, even though like in popular entertainment today, they always wear the black mask. But so that.
Oh, I just thought about... Sorry, just before we end, because I see this is like the last page.
Yeah.
I just thought about executions and firing squads when they have like the group of people and they don't put the bullets in... Or they put the bullets in one gun or they don't put the bullets in
only
one
some
gun.
of the guns.
I think they don't put the bullets in one gun. Yeah.
We had that story.
So you can...
Have we covered the one with the... Have you recorded the one with the... Nobody wanted to do it still, so someone had to make a machine that would do it? Like that would shoot the gun? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't remember what the biggest story was here, but I remember this.
Yeah. I was in one of them recently.
Yeah.
I don't know, the last month or two.
But I mean, so someone's still pressing the button on the machine. I mean, what's the difference?
Why isn't that the way? Like, I could see, like, gun, back of the head, machine that does it. Nobody has to press anything. It's just you put them in the room. As soon as someone sits on the thing, machine learning to learn to just gun back of the head. Like, it's painless. They're not going to...
Yeah, because the person would be like, no, I'm not going to sit down, thanks. So someone's got to push them down, and then that person's the person pushing the button.
I suppose. But you could have where they just have to enter the room, and then just the robot comes in, like, or just into their cell or whatever, and just like the...
Sit down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but dude, someone's got to turn that robot on.
And as morbid as humans are, if you actually made almost like the Ottoman thing where, like, okay, we're going to put you in this cell, and there's going to be a robot. If you can defeat the robot, you go free. And if not, it'll kill you.
Yeah, but people don't want them going free.
This would be like no, I think
it'd be like you killed 17 people.
this would be a super popular show. It would be. And
dude, no.
Yes, it absolutely
this isn't,
would.
We're not in the dystopian future yet.
This would be something that everyone would watch, regardless, because it would be one of those things that people couldn't watch. It's like, people might say like, oh, I would never watch that, but no, like everyone would watch this, just like the Gladiators.
Dude, I wouldn't watch this.
No,
I would not watch this.
It would be like. But you would hear people.
It's like how many ISIS beheadings have you watched? 0, because I don't like seeing people get their heads chopped off.
That's not entertainment. The entertainment here is if you made it so they actually could get away, right? So it's not, nobody wants to see someone getting beheaded.
Okay.
But if it's like,
I don't like blood sports.
Yeah.
I don't watch boxing. It's too violent. I don't watch MMA or any of this stuff. It's just too much. I don't want to see people get their faces bashed in.
I agree completely. I don't watch that. But
you just said everyone would watch this.
Most people, it would be popular because humans aren't any different than 2,000 years ago.
Yeah,
when this
no,
sort of
I
thing
can't. It
was
would be
popular.
Sadly, though, I don't think it should be popular.
No, but it would be wildly popular, and the people who would get off would go and have their reality TV shows, and that would be a thing.
This would be terrible. It'd be like, what's this? Hey, it's a new show with Peter the Pedophile. What's going on? It's like the worst future ever.
Who famously defeated the robot,
yeah.
by whatever.
No, this isn't good.
Yeah.
I don't like this idea.
Or they used to have that Robot Wars show. You ever watch that? Where they
Robot Wars.
Yeah,
but that's robots destroying each other.
They just
it's not
throw
the
in a
same
human.
thing. It's a big difference, but no, it's a big difference between robots destroying each other and robots destroying people.
Yeah. But people would be just as it would be a more popular show than that Robot Wars show was.
Yeah, it definitely would.
Yeah,
it definitely would.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So
is that it?
Yeah,
Are we done?
That's it for this episode.
Okay. On that note,
yeah.
Please do consider leaving us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. It would be appreciated. Like we said at the beginning of the show, we got that contest going on, so there's a good reason. And you can leave us a rubbish review. If you were like, is this show about facts or is it about, BS? 2 stars. That's okay. You're still in the competition.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be awkward when I email you to be like, hey, congratulations, you dick. Thank you everybody for listening. It has been a pleasure. We'll be back real soon, maybe, hopefully, possibly, with a new episode. Thank you for listening.